So today I want to talk about purification practices um, and the four opponent powers. And a lot of times people think of these with as four R's to remember them. That's how I do that. But even then, they come up with different names. So I think of them as regret or remorse, and then sometimes the second one is called refuge or reliance. I think of it as repairing or restoring the relationship, which involves a refuge to restore our relationship with holy beings, and also involves restoring our relationship with sentient beings. So that who is that's often who we have created negativities in regard to. And the third is a remedial action. We can be doing something, a religious practice or something generous and beneficial. We can be trying to benefit people, offering service. And the last I call resolve. Sometimes it's called the promise. But mostly today I want to talk about the first one, which is regret. And we have to look at the difference between regret and guilt. And we may have heard this a lot and know it intellectually, but we really need to be able to recognize the difference in our own minds. Um, found a definition of regret. It says regret is a mind that regards an appropriate action or an inappropriate action that we've done and says it is something that we don't want to do again. And then in that case, regret can be a virtuous action when we regret a non-virtuous action. And it can become a non-virtuous mental state when we regret virtuous things. It could also be neutral. If I walk out through the tall grass and get a lot of ticks on me, I could regret that I walked out through the tall grass, but it was neither a virtuous nor a non-virtuous action. So the regret is also non-virtuous. Um, but guilt is viewed more as something that is self-condemning, a feeling of being bad or unworthy. Um, I think guilt fails to differentiate between the person and the action and sees them as inseparable. And really, when we're doing purification practices, we are we are trying to remove a negative imprint or lessen it from our minds. We don't want to be holding on to it. And guilt really holds on to a negative action as like it's part of our identity. It doesn't really let it go. And regret or remorse actually wants to abandon that kind of action. And so there's quite a different effect there. We can also feel a different effect in our own minds, whether or not well, true regret and the four opponent powers can relieve us of a sense of guilt. We can move forward away from it. Um, I have a couple analogies for this. One is if I'm on a ship in a storm and I have to maybe turn the ship a certain way so that the wind doesn't blow me over and fill my boat. So I'm blown off course. When the storm is over and I can use my tools, whatever they are, whether it's a GPS or some ancient tool to figure out where I am at, then I want to say, well, I'm here and I want to be over there. And I set a new course and I head to correct my course. And that is for me more like regret. I want to see what I did that I want to abandon, and I want to correct my course of where I'm heading. I have another analogy, more modern. If I'm driving somewhere and I'm trying to get there at a time and I miss my exit, maybe I'm on the freeway, I miss my exit and I go on to the next exit. That's all I can do. I can't back up on the freeway. I can get to the next exit and either find my way from there, or I can get back on the freeway, go back to my first exit, and try to get to my destination as quick as I can from where I'm at. I can't get myself back in time to have not missed my exit. And I like this analogy because I can do it as I just described. I'm like, well, how is the quickest way I can get there now? Or I can beat myself up. Oh, you idiot! You missed your exit. Blah blah, and just create unnecessary unnecessary turmoil in my mind that won't get me to my destination even any quicker than just letting it go and trying my best to get there from where I'm at. Um, I can think of all the times that I've wasted in my life, how much of my life I've wasted following worldly pursuits. But I'm not going to waste any more time going into guilt over that. I'm not going to waste any more time worrying about that. I'm just going to do what I can from this point in my life and practice. And so, to me, that is a big difference in regret and guilt. Is that the regret gets in the way, like with the analogy of missing my exit. If I'm so disturbed with guilt that I'm upset, I'm probably not going to find the best way to correct my course. I might miss my exit again, be too distracted, and where regret can be calmer than that. You can say, this is an action I want to abandon, and I understand why. And that's the other part of what I want to talk about with regret is kind of the levels of regret. We can regret, one level is I regret the harm that I've done to others. Um, in the in our 35 Buddha practice in the morning, confession of the Bodhisattva's confession of ethical downfall, says, I have committed actions harmful to the three jewels and avoided the holy Dharma, criticized the Arya Sangha, and harm living beings. So one level of regret here is that I can see, oh, that action was harmful to someone else. It could produce conditions for their suffering. And I can get in touch with my wish to benefit sentient beings, my wish for them not to suffer. And I can really see that that was going against that. And thus I can generate regret in that sense. But I also have regret for having planted seeds for my own suffering, which is a big part of what's emphasized in the purification practices. In the Bodhisattva's Confession of Ethical Downfall, it says, I have created many obstacles to my own higher rebirth and liberation, and have planted countless seeds for further wanderings in cyclic existence and miserable states of being. And when we generate regret, we really want to have a strong understanding of this, of what this means. Um, uh, a strong belief in understanding of karma. I mean, the details of karma is said can only be known by a Buddha. But I can know that if I'm harming sentient beings, I'm creating causes for my own suffering. If I'm being disrespectful to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I'm creating causes for my own suffering in the future. And to have a real understanding of that, sometimes, sometimes when I'm doing purification practices, I may be experiencing some suffering, and maybe not know what causes that, what karmic causes are behind that. But sometimes I will just say, I regret the negative actions I've done that have caused this. And it gets me to reflect on what things I'm doing now and what I will do in the future. So Without this regret, the other steps won't be very strong. If I have a habitual action I do, and I'm not really contemplating what are the effects of that in the long run, or don't have strong conviction that I'm planting negative seeds, my resolve to not do that again will be weak. Um, my remedial action will be not have as much strength. Um, and if I'm harming others and I don't really have a strong regret for that, how am I really going to repair that relationship with the three jewels and with sentient beings? So this is a um, very important step. This first step, and really, this is a important step in our practice, and we do purification practice around here a lot because we've created innumerable karmic imprints just in this one life. Unfathomable amount of karma we've created throughout our uncountable lives. And we need to do these purification practices and really turn our minds towards virtue. And so, this first step of regret is the one I really wanted to talk about today and to think about and really think about how we to really think about it when we do our purification practices, to really be in tune with what is regret and what is guilt, and um, and to have a strong and healthy sense of regret. Regret is not a negative mind if we're regretting a negative action. It's a very positive mind. We're seeing what we want to abandon and moving our mind towards what we want to practice.